Welcome, everybody, to the Wellness Founders Podcast, where we explore the business of wellness and the people creating the future of well-being. Really excited to have my guest on today, Alex Doman, founder and CEO of Advanced Brain Technologies. And this company's been around for a while, Alex, since 1998, with a vision to create innovative sound and music products that advance people's brains for a better life. You've also been the founder and chief scientist of Sleep Genius, the Movement Program, best-selling co-author of Healing at the Speed of Sound, which is a book that's right over your shoulder there for people to see, which is perfect. Massive welcome to you, Alex. Thanks so much for coming onto the show.
Jordan, I'm excited to be here with you today and to explore this topic of health entrepreneurship with you.
Yeah, and I'm excited to also learn a little bit about how to sleep better, about how to move better, about how to listen to things better. So I'm sure we'll get into a lot. One thing that interests me is where your excitement is about neurotechnology, where the science is going, and what are some things you guys are doing to push it forward right now?
Yeah, it's really been exciting to watch where the field has come. I've been in this space just over 30 years now. So where we were and where things have come are just so dramatically different, right? We now have this public awareness that not only is it important to nourish and to train our brain to optimize our lives for a high quality life and for longevity. But now we've got this intersection of technology and solutions and science and public awareness with a convergence that is allowing a level of accessibility that is unprecedented until today. So, what's really exciting me is just the access, the quality of what's coming to market, and the accessibility and the fact that people are now able to incorporate these solutions into their everyday lives rather than having to go into a facility and, do these different technologies. So I think what's most exciting now is the ability to quantify our current state through biometrics and neuromonitoring, and to have our solutions respond to the individual in real time so that we have highly personalized solutions like we never had before.
And tell me about the stages that you've seen of this development, because let's say what you were developing in the late 90s and putting out into market, obviously very different today. And there's stages along the entrepreneurial journey where maybe you're too early into things. I'm curious, like if you were to break those down into like chapters, what would those chapters be called, or how would you look at these chapters of the past 20, 30 years?
That's a great question, because there are so many topics within each chapter, Jordan. So, we can talk about the science, right? Early on, the science was fairly limited. There was a level of understanding about this thing called brain plasticity when I started. And, and interestingly, I got into this work because of my family that had been in the field 2 generations prior to me having this conversation with their colleagues. So the public awareness of this thing called brain plasticity was fairly new. And when we were starting my work, it was, the decade of the brain. So this is very, very early on. The public becomes aware. The solutions that we were developing were an answer to very effective but inaccessible neuroacoustic treatments people would travel to Europe to do. And we understood that we could take a new approach to developing these, what were called music listening therapies and still are today, to create something that was home-based, highly accessible, affordable, and scalable using new technology called the compact disc, right? Which sounds crazy to say, but, chapter 1, taking an expensive therapy you had to travel to Europe for, and then producing something on CD someone could do anywhere, anytime with a Discman. So that's chapter one. Chapter two, we have, the advent of digital media players. We have improved recording technologies, new ways that we can do neuroacoustic modifications to music to affect change in the brain, improved imaging and brain monitoring capabilities. So we take that next evolution in personalization and quality, and we're able to make deeper impact on the individual in less time. So, that really for us was chapter two. And now we're in chapter 3 and 4 of what I think is a 100-chapter book. We're still very early in what I see as a very nascent field today. As we move into chapter 3, we have streaming audio technologies. We have the ability to now have the ubiquity of a media player in everybody's pocket on a phone or on their laptop or on their iPad or tablet device. We again have another leap in quality, a leap in biometric assessment, and now we can create technologies that are responsive to us in real time, so that rather than just producing music that is affecting change through sound stimulation on the brain, we can create neuroresponsive music that is responsive to us in the moment, allowing a level of personalization that never existed before. And that's only going to continue to improve.
And you talk about these different stages and chapters as this thing did not exist, now it exists, as far as a capability, as far as an accessibility. I'm curious from the business side, when you're discerning about bringing to market a very innovative technology, how are you discerning that this is the right time to do it because the market will respond a certain way? And like, what were your thought processes along that? It's like, okay, we're ready to bring the CD here because this is what we think is going to happen. And I'm wondering how you think about that.
Yeah, I was fortunate, Jordan. Before I got into what I'll call the family business of human brain performance, I was in telecommunications in the cellular industry. And I was watching how rapidly things were changing and where this thing called the mobile phone was going to go, right? And this was in the late 80s, early 90s before I started in this field. So I've always had an eye to what's coming. And I would say that often, Jordan, we moved into new delivery systems, new technologies, maybe before the market was ready, but we just instinctually understood it's where it had to go. And I think you get a sense for these things by looking beyond your immediate field and seeing what is happening with the larger companies. Where is research happening? Where is technology converging? What's coming next? Where are investors placing investments in the next thing? So I think you have to have more of a macro view rather than just the micro view of your immediate field to understand kind of what's happening and have some understanding of what might come in the future. But generally, it's like what makes sense as the next thing.
And it sounds like that for you was an intuitive thing. I'm curious if we take AI, for instance, and we take wearables and we take, what's available now and we're looking towards the future. Is there a process orientation you're using to be like, okay, here's the patterns, here's where I think things are going to go, here's what we should do, here's the next step, based on all these lessons you've learned of being first in the market before? Is there any process around that?
The process has moved a lot faster, Jordan. So now it's a matter of keeping up with how rapidly things have shifted. So that's a big difference. Early on, for example, in developing the platform that we have for a product called the Listening Program Online, we had developed the data structure so that it would be AI ready. We built algorithms. We had early machine learning, knowing we would move to artificial intelligence eventually, and that we would have a system that would have data ready, that learning could take place on the data that we had been collecting for years and years and years. So part of it is anticipating what's coming. Now, have we executed on implementing AI? We actually haven't. We haven't done that. We haven't felt a need to do it yet, just because that's where the market has gone. in order for us to move forward with the new technology, we have to see that we're going to have an improvement in accessibility, or we're going to have an improvement in outcomes. We're going to have an improvement in cost efficacy, and access and impact is always our North Star, our true north in terms of what we're looking toward. So there has to be a reason beside the fact that it's happening. I think right now there is a lot of noise happening in the space in terms of measurement and AI, and the fact that we're adding AI just like we added .com, the .com bubble, to everything to make something feel cutting edge and new. I don't feel a necessity to do that. I think it's more important that we're true to what we're doing and that we're leveraging technology if in fact we believe it's going to be helpful. So I think there are a lot of interesting things happening with AI in the space right now. And we'll get there, but it's not a high priority right now.
And you come from a background of science around the brain and probably using hypotheses around certain things to find these outcomes. I'm curious, when you look at it from the business sense of, are we going to develop more beneficial outcomes? Are we going to increase accessibility? What is the hypothesis that you're running to say yes or no to?
Um, Yeah, I think to, reframe what's the hypothesis that we use in terms of yes or no is, do we feel an economic investment in this is going to make enough impact on the individuals, the outcomes, and our business to warrant doing X? And we have to get to that hypothesis that, yes, we believe that that's going to be true in order to make that investment. Until we're convinced that that's the case, we generally don't move.
Got it. And your company, does a lot of research, does a lot of in-depth studying of the different types of products that you're putting out. Can you go over how much has actually been done to conduct this research of like the effectiveness of the products, the effectiveness of the programs, and like what's that been like for the past 30 years? I'm sure that's changed too, but even just like in the product development side of, are we doing something that's really impactful? Like how are you looking at that?
So when we develop new programs, Jordan, we make the decision is we are not looking for a need to fill. A need is presenting itself to us, and we figure out how to solve the problem for that need, if that makes sense. And in doing that, we gather all the information we can on the subject, right? So we do literature reviews, we talk to colleagues, other professionals in the field. We get some consensus on the problem that we're looking to solve. And are there solutions out there that already address it? Do we even need to be doing this thing? Or are there solutions and there's some gaps? There's some areas that we can make improvement. We can do things better, more cost effectively, more efficacious, more enjoyable. And enjoyment's always important to us. We create beautiful products. So when people experience them, they're intrinsically motivated to continue to engage with them and use them as part of their daily life. So we'll conduct our lit reviews. We will begin to prototype a solution, test it on individuals, starts with ourselves, friends, family, colleagues. Then we'll run field studies on the population that we want to serve with this and get enough evidence that this is, first of all, safe, that this is efficacious, and that our peers believe this is valuable. By peers, these are clinicians that are working in the field with the clients every day from diverse backgrounds. So is this something that you would use and recommend to your clients based on the rationale, the product itself, and the outcomes that we have so far? When we get to that yes, we then have a comfort level bringing that to market. Then as we bring that to market, individuals will come and begin to independently study what we're doing, and then we'll cooperate with them on the independent studies and build that evidence base over time.
How beneficial has, or I guess how important has your relationships in the industry been to be able to do that? Because it feels like it's probably very relationship driven to conduct those types of studies and get it out there like you're doing.
Jordan, it is absolutely everything. The great thing is, having been in this space for a while, a lot of the people that started with us as clinicians are still with us today. And I'm talking back when we originated the company in 1998. They're still practicing with our work today. The difference is they've gone from zero experience with our products to potentially of having worked with hundreds or thousands of individuals. And we have this feedback loop through these practitioners and a trust that's been built for them to then bring in their colleagues. So we've been, I would say, blessed to have a network of practitioners, of clinicians, of subject matter experts that will always lean in when asked to give us help, to give us input, to give us candid feedback on what we're doing. So I don't know how we would do it without this network.
I'm curious if you're going to give some advice to someone who's trying to build a product in the wellness space, and maybe it's something similar to what you're doing. Maybe it's something is maybe not the same thing, but how do you go about this feedback loop process? Like,
Well,
what constitutes good feedback that you're going to take? What constitutes something that's like, we'll leave that out?
um, let me give that some thought. I think first of all, people have to understand that the intent for what you're doing is very pure. And I can't be more sincere about that statement. They have to understand your motive for what you're doing. Our motive is impact. We want to change lives. Uh, People on this planet are hurting. We want them to hurt less and perform better. And that's becoming more and more true, unfortunately, with every year that passes, that I've been in this space. So it's building genuine relationships that are reciprocal, and that we're there to help and bring value to whoever is helping us in the work that we're doing. It's not one way. And it's interesting, Jordan, in the past few years, I've been fortunate to be part of different groups in the health and wellness space and masterminds and coalitions and collectives of like-minded founders, entrepreneurs, product creators, clinicians. And I'm seeing this movement of reciprocity like I've never seen before. And I think this is becoming the new normal. And the field as a whole is getting better for it. That we all know we're in this thing together. And this thing is to make humanity healthier, happier, more balanced. And as we understand that greater mission and that responsibility that we all have, when people are looking at that as a true north, amazing things are happening.
And why do you think that is? Was there a tipping point to that maybe changed in society, or what are you tracking as this big movement or reason for it?
I just think it's the natural course that's had to take place. We can do so much as individuals. We can do so much as individual organizations to make the kind of change that we need to make in society in terms of health and well-being, considering what we're up against in many ways, what's the norm. We have to band together to make the change. I don't
So
think
it's
there's an alternative.
Yeah, so it's kind of like the human organism is biologically connecting to the other organisms, understanding that the plight of our humanity is at stake if we don't get better.
Uh, I,
And
I I think you said that so well. I I'm dating myself, but I found a documentary on Devo the other night, and I watched this documentary on Devo, which was like when MTV came about when I was a young teenager. Their videos played all the time, and I'm watching. Why is there this doc on Devo? And I never understood their origins and their why. And it was their concern about the de-evolution of humanity. And in many ways, we can see how we're regressing as we're advancing as a product of our own making. So as we're in this health and wellness space, I do think we biologically, as you said, as a species, have to come together to reverse this trend and more rapidly,
And,
because we're devolving faster than I'm comfortable witnessing.
yeah. Yeah, the de-evolution of humanity is interesting to think about it that way, and how we can band together, how we can turn this around. And most people that I talk to in this space that are in health and wellness, it's like they're in this because a passion has also brought them to this, or they've fixed themselves, healed themselves. They've gotten a taste of how it is that they can get over something or get through something very difficult, and now they want to share that with other people. And that passion is also very contagious. It's something where if you, like you said, if you can sense the motive of someone and the intention is to help other people, to create impact, and it's towards something like wellness, towards health, it's very easy to get on board.
Yeah.
It's very easy to say, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's get on the ride. I'm in. Let's get on the
So,
train.
so for you guys, I mean, you talk about the issues that you want to solve with this, and that those issues bubble up, they come to the surface, and they ask to be solved. Is there one in particular that you're focused on right now, developing for near release, or what are you thinking is the next evolution for you?
Yeah, a lot of our work, it's been interesting, Jordan. A lot of our work has evolved in the initial applications. What we thought our products were helping with. In many cases, we were only scratching the surface. And by scratching the surface, a lot of our music listening therapies, the listening program is the flagship methodology. Over 1 million people have used it. We've trained over 10,000 practitioners in over 40 countries that implement this therapeutic protocol. And where we started and where we are today in terms of how it's impacting the individual couldn't be more different. It turns out, fundamentally, we're simply improving self-regulation, right? We're helping people to self-regulate and helping the body and the brain to respond to its environment the way that it was designed to do. But because of the world and the way things are coming at us, we are responding in a way as if there is an imminent threat that maybe isn't necessarily there, right? We have this false neuroception that we're under threat and in a survival response when we don't need to be. And these stressors have been building up and building up and building up that feel life-threatening in terms of how we function from day to day. And one of the things that we've observed trending is an increase in auditory processing difficulties, people having a difficulty using the sound information coming into them, responding to that appropriately, processing it. And in particular, an area called hyperacusis or sound sensitivity. We're observing more and more, especially young people, becoming abnormally sensitive to sounds in their environment. So much so that it impacts them socially. We see social anxiety coming as a result of that, poor communication, challenges learning, interacting with others, functioning in the workplace, and many people get really debilitated with it. And there has been a rise, and this is only anecdotal, but I'm seeing it since the pandemic. More and more people talking about it, maybe an awareness, but this awareness and concern and discomfort with sound in the environment because more and more is coming at us. So we've been working with a group that originated in the field of neurophysiology that have developed a algorithm to help repattern brain activity in such a way that we can better self-regulate. And one of the results that we see in response to that is a reduction in sound sensitivities, where sound becomes more comfortable, more tolerable, and people can function better in the environments in which they live. So we have a new solution that is coming out at the first of the year, early 2026, that specifically addresses this particular dysfunction, where we're seeing at least an awareness increase of, if not an increase in society. having these challenges.
You're speaking my language, Alex, because I'm sitting here in Medellin, Colombia, and I am in Belén, a part of the city that is right next to this main street where I have a pretty thin window. I can hear the traffic go by. There's an airport, a small prop plane airport right there. Every 15, 20 minutes, there's an airplane that goes over. There is a security guard that you may even be able to hear with even with this microphone that's whistling when he goes by every 20, 30 minutes. There are avocado guys selling avocados and papayas and bananas that are screaming or have an audio recording. There are dogs walking by. I am just at the brim at almost all times. I have these little earbuds that I put in when I'm just sitting here because it is so much constantly that I even went a couple months ago to a friend's place back in the US. He lives in the suburbs of Georgia, and I heard quiet for the first time in like a year. I didn't even realize. And yeah, I'd love to dive into the science of this, like what is happening to me. Like, let me know what's happening and how do we fix this? And yeah, maybe I'll be on this wait list for the first.
Well, it's a real issue, especially when you're in highly populated urban areas, right? So there is this thing called noise pollution. Just like we have air pollution. I think if we could see the noise, we wouldn't tolerate to the level that we do societally. But we do, Jordan, right? See more and more people with headphones on, with earbuds in, wearing earplugs, wearing earmuffs, trying to filter out some of this cacophony of noise that is coming at us. And this is a natural byproduct of our advancing as humans, right? This advancement is part of that de-evolution, if you will, where as we become more mechanized, we have more technology, we have more access, we have greater population and denser areas, we have more noise coming at us. And what's the brain doing with that noise? Well, the brain is assessing, am I safe? The first purpose of the auditory system is to monitor your environment for safety. And your nervous system is constantly making decisions. Am I safe, or do I need to fight, or do I need to flee, or shut down in self-protection? So we go into fight and flight response, and we don't even recognize that we're there many times when we're in these environments, because the brain is having to discern safety and is there information it needs to respond to. And this happens 24/7, 365. That doesn't shut off. We're monitoring our environment for safety when we sleep. So if the apex predator is coming, we can respond and protect ourselves or run like hell. So what's happening is we're in a noisy and noisier planet. There's more and more coming at us, and much of it is self-induced. Your, analog of being in Georgia, finding some quiet, just that deep breath that happened for me, even as you said that, it's an absolute reset. The ability to find space, find quiet, um, get away from the noise, not even necessarily use sound therapies and music listening therapy. Just find some quiet, not silence. Silence is very difficult to actually achieve, but just find some quiet space. Our nervous systems really, really need that, and just connecting with nature gives us that, right? So if
Yeah.
you can get out of Medellin into some of the beautiful jungles and mountainous areas of Colombia and enjoy that beauty in
Yeah.
space, you'd have an instant reset on your system. So what we're doing with this new therapy, and it's called acoustical neuromodulation, A&M. A&M provides that reset to the nervous system, and it does it very quickly. In the studies so far, this protocol is just 5 hours over 2 weeks. So it's a very short duration to reset the system. And once that system gets reset and it's interpreting the environment in a different way, well, now the brain has to learn, yeah, I am in fact safe. This is or is not a real threat. And our whole emotional regulatory system resets. And then when we reset, we can better process what's coming into us. Our stress levels drop. We get better rest. We can attend better and have increased focus, better engagement with other individuals. Um, we become balanced, and all we're doing is helping the nervous system do what it's designed to do naturally. But this world that we're living in is making it very difficult to do so.
Yeah, I get curious about like what's actually happening during a reset. So there's this protocol, um, like how do we even track that there's this part of our nervous system that's resetting? How does that work?
Yeah, well, we can do pre and post EEG studies. So we can actually do a baseline of what our current EEG status is. We can see what we would call that disorganization in the nervous system, run the protocol, do post EEG, see that reset, that reorganization in the nervous system. So we can quantify that quite readily through EEG. What's most important to us in everything that we do and we're guided by Jordan is that whatever we do has to produce functional change. If we don't experience functional change, so what? Being very basic. People have to experience, I feel better. I feel calmer. I'm sleeping better. My ability to focus is improved. My fuse is much longer. I'm not getting set off by things that would trigger me. Those triggers aren't happening. My relationship with my partner is better. With my kids are better. With my friends are better. Those are the things that we see that really solidify it for us. And of course, there's standardized checklists and other measures and stress scales that we can use, anxiety scales to measure pre and post change, and they reflect that change. But ultimately, we're looking for that functional change in somebody's life that they feel better.
Yeah, I get more and more curious about this. And when I was in Georgia, as an example, like I was hearing silence for the first time in a while, and it was like a bell or like a ringing sound, and it was so crazy because I think I've been so I don't know if this is the disorganization of the nervous system or what it is, but hearing complete silence somehow I interpreted like this buzz. It was like zzz, and it was such a weird experience.
And was it weird positive? What was it, a good thing or
It was
you're
a little bit concerning at first because I didn't know if something is wrong because I was like, is this what silence actually sounds like, or has something happened in my auditory system or in my nervous system that's creating this out of reaction from being overstimulated for so long? I don't know.
right? So this is I'm not a doctor. This is not a diagnosis, but one thing for you to explore, Jordan, is do you perhaps have tinnitus or
Could be.
ringing in the ears? And what happens when we're in an environment that has a lot of sound
Yeah.
that masks the internal sounds that we're perceiving within the body, that it
Mm,
is when we come in touch with quiet that our awareness is raised of that internal sound.
yeah.
I can talk about this publicly, have many times. My wife has tinnitus that's secondary to a significant hearing loss in lower to mid frequency sounds. And our therapies have been incredibly effective to help Mandy, but it hasn't cured her tinnitus. What it's done is allowed her to be more comfortable in her experience of it so she doesn't experience extreme stress. But I can say for her that she needs to fill her environment with some sound. She's gotten very good at finding the right sounds that help and are soothing, that help with that masking. But I suspect that if you went and saw an audiologist and you asked for a tinnitus screening, that you might in fact discover that you do have some ear ringing and you're in
Yeah.
a enough environment that it might be masking that for you.
Yeah, and I mean, even at night and, during different times of the day, there's always a fan on. There's always
Yeah.
like some type of white noise at minimum. And it was funny because I went to at my birthday a number of weeks ago and was like, I need to get out of the city. I want to go just relax. I want to find some peace and quiet. And I got a room at this boutique hotel, which I'm thinking in my mind, this is in the mountains, it's gonna be super quiet. And the neighbors next to us were up until 2 a.m. They were the adjacent cabin with very loud reggaeton music. And so I didn't quite get
Yeah.
the quiet getaway, but I am interested in having a routine where it is that I go and explore more quiet. Eventually when the time comes with the lease being up at this place, we'll probably find a place in a part of the city that's less stressful, less noisy. But it is such a tough thing because it feels like it's everywhere.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, we know that, even if you look at the maps, if you look, if you just do an internet search on like light pollution and you try to find areas where there's true darkness, where you can see the stars in the world, they're becoming fewer and fewer year by year. So we're
Yeah.
bombarded with light, we're bombarded by sound and so many other things, but not to be alarmist, but we need to have an awareness that this is having an effect on our function and performance and how we function, an individual, but more greatly on a societal level.
Should there be any responsibility to be given to governments or to like how does this get regulated? It seems like private companies doing things like what you're doing to help
Yeah.
people heal is the only thing that's happening in this moment. But is there something else that should happen?
I mean, there are things happening, right? So at certain levels. So in the United States, there's an organization called OSHA, and OSHA makes sure that workplaces are safe, and they have standard for safe sound levels, noise levels. This is also true in the military in terms of military-induced auditory traumas. So there is an awareness and a monitoring and standards that are set. But interestingly, a number of years ago, and was right after my book, Healing at the Speed of Sound, came out, the World Health Report did a large study in Europe. And it was looking at the environmental factors that were inducing stress on citizens in the EU. Well, guess what the number one factor was? Noise.
Noise, yeah.
And to such an extent that there are documented cardiac deaths that are associated causally to direct noise exposure. So there is awareness growing, and I think there are efforts being made. We're just not there yet. So it starts with each of us. So how do we make our environment safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Starting with our young children when their auditory systems are most susceptible. Can we keep the earbuds out of our tweens and our teens' ears as much as possible? Not wearing headphones for longer than an hour at a time, really, really helpful. Exposing ourselves to nature, quality sound and music, finding periods of quiet, using our technology less. These are all, positive things that we can do for ourselves. Take quiet breaks in our day, even if it's just 5 minutes. And that quiet break, like for somebody that's working in an office environment and they don't have a quiet space to go sit in a bathroom stall for 5 minutes by yourself and just find a quiet break. It can do wonders for you.
I get curious if it's OHSA, right? The Safety and Health Administration.
OSHA,
Is it?
OSHA, yeah.
Yeah. I,
Occupational Safety Health Association.
I'd be curious if they came to the gym that I go to. It would take them less than 10 seconds to be like, this is out of compliance. Yeah, the gym that I go to is they basically like a nightclub with
Well, you
with
know,
classes.
and they are. So you can get a free decibel meter on your phone,
Yeah.
right? You can put that anywhere and see if you're at safe levels or not.
And what would be an unsafe level? The starting of the unsafe level. Where are we sitting?
The starting this, so it has to do with amplitude and duration of exposure,
Okay.
right? So it's a combination. And there are pretty common scales out there. It's been some time since I've looked at scales, but once you get above 85 decibels for 30 minutes or an hour or longer, you begin to get at risk for some exposures,
Okay.
right? Conversational language, for reference, we're at about 50 to 55, 60 decibels as we're talking right now.
Okay. I'm gonna check this tomorrow morning, and I want to see,
Yeah.
and I'm probably gonna send them a report on this, like you, because I wear the headphones in every class, or I wear these earplugs in every class, just because I know that if I don't, I'm gonna be losing my hearing. Okay, I want to go back just for one moment to just like your personal investment in this. Like, you obviously, it's family business in a way, or a family. Your family's been in this for a long time, as far as the neurotech space, advancing brain and brain research, and understanding these different things. Why is this so important to you? And like, because you're obviously your own person. Like, how has this become something that you've committed your life to, and why?
Well, I didn't want to. You know, that's the honest answer. I think often when you grow up surrounded in a certain, and I won't even call it a profession because it's multiple professions in my family that all contribute to this work. Um, Life was working to make impact on those that most needed help: severely brain injured children, kids with chromosomal anomalies, kids with severe autism, um, people that had suffered strokes, traumatic brain injury from car accidents. My life was surrounded with my father, my grandfather, my aunt, my cousins, doing anything and everything to make impact on these individuals. So it's just a way of being. It's a way of working. Um, I felt I would always be part of that, but I didn't want to work in the field per se. I didn't want to be a physician like my grandfather or an educator like my father. I wasn't a great student. I knew I wasn't going to thrive in the classroom for a long period of time, and I wanted to do my own thing. So, and I was very entrepreneurial. I knew I didn't want to work with clients one on one, but I wanted to work with technology. I had a big interest in sound and music. I had my own personal challenges, Jordan, with auditory processing. I had sound sensitivity. I had tinnitus. And part of that came from a lot of loud concerts in my teens when I was heavily involved in the punk rock scene. So I had had noise induced tinnitus and hyperacusis as a result of the environment that I was in. So part of what I had to do was solve my own problem. And I was using some of these therapies to do that. I came to the work and started in it because my father had a health event. He almost lost his life to a heart attack. And I looked at the impact his work was making. I didn't want that to stop. So I shifted my career in telecom, joined him as he was recovering, and to build the work and make sure that legacy continued of what he's doing. By the way, that was in 1992. My father still actively sees clients 5 days a week around the world. So he's healthy and strong and continuing to do his work in wonderful ways. But for me, seeing that health event happen for my dad, my own experiences that I had said, this is what I'm going to do. I realize it's more important to be part of this than to do my own thing per se. But I found my own space. And my own space
Yeah.
was the convergence of technology, of music and product development to create scalable solutions. That to me was very exciting, to find problems to solve, figure out how we could solve them, how we could do it elegantly, make impact that was meaningful. That's really become the driving force for me.
Yeah, it seems like you're still able to make your own lane out of something that felt like a way of being because of the family
Yeah.
structure and the way that things were when you were growing up. I think it's really cool to be able to still just find your own peace with that that is truly you. Um, I'm curious about the work with the kids with autism, and that was something that you brought up, and I saw it in your LinkedIn as well, because I know there's a lot of auditory issues that come through that. I have a lot of family experience with autism. I've worked with kids with spina bifida, autism, cerebral palsy, all sorts of different things. I'm curious, does that work still continue today with you, and what was the nature of that work and the help with those
Yeah.
individuals?
So working with kids on the autism spectrum, started 2 generations ago in the 60s. And when my grandfather, who was a rehab physician, my great uncle, who was a physical therapist and child developmentalist, in their team and their work, they were seeing kids that weren't brain injured, but were exhibiting behaviors and signs that were very similar to brain injured kids. And they were coming to him with a diagnosis that didn't make sense to them, which was childhood schizophrenia. Right. So that was the preceding diagnosis to autism. And they looked at the world through the lens of how is the brain receiving, processing, storing, responding to information coming to it through the senses. Then how do we provide sensory stimulation to produce a change in the individual that improves the function of how they perform in their daily life? That's the basic premise. And they were able to make significant impact on these kids where others weren't getting a result, looking at it more holistically. So growing up, I spent a lot of time with kids on the autism spectrum. I work directly hands on with kids on the spectrum. And in the field of this listening work, the kids that were showing the most dramatic response to listening therapies were kids on the autism spectrum. So it just became a natural path. We work through advanced brain technologies in the listening program. The largest population that we serve are kids that are somewhere on this spectrum or have sensory sensitivities. So it's a place that we've done the most research, where we know it can make the deepest impact, and we're seeing an increase in precedent in our population. And I don't believe that we're just diagnosing it more. I think we're definitely seeing increases, and won't get into the whys. We don't know why, but there appear to be many contributing factors. And I would say this is a population for me that is some of the most gratifying to serve. I'm just thinking specifically, I've got a dear friend, Kristen, and I served on the board with her at the Autism Hope Alliance. It's a nonprofit that, brings valuable information to parents of kids on the spectrum. And she came to the work because of her son, Jackson. And I first met Jax when he was 5 years old, when we first put headphones on a kid that wouldn't wear a hat and whose head you couldn't touch. And Jax is now in his mid-20s. And this is a different kid. And the listening program's still part of his daily routine because it feeds him and it serves him every day.
That's
And
awesome.
just so it just, for me, my heart very much is with these kids.
And it feels like your legacy could be a lot of different things. It brings me to my last question, which is, what is Alex's legacy in the wellness industry? What movement do you want to be known for creating? Where does it go from here?
I've never thought about that, Jordan. I would just say that what's most important to me is that people that have worked with our organization, have worked with our products, have found them to be true. They've found them to be helpful. and that they have found us to be in service to them. And that really is the most important thing to me, that people felt that we cared and that we made some positive impact in their life.
Awesome. Well, Alex, thanks so much for joining me today. Really appreciate the conversation. I'm looking forward to the early part of the year where I can start to understand all this noise pollution and how to revert my tinnitus,
Tinnitus,
tinnitus.
they're both
Yeah,
correct. They're
yeah,
both
and
correct.
yeah, this sensitivity that I have because that really resonated with me a lot. And yeah, appreciate you sharing time with me today.
Yeah, Jordan, thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.